Your phone isn't heavy because it weighs a lot. It's heavy because you already know what's in it. A message that looks like love, but it lands like a summons. If you're the one who always fixes it, smooths it over, or holds your tongue so grown ass adults can keep their ego intact, this one's gonna be for you. Because some of y'all are calling it family, but your body is calling it unsafe. Hey y'all, welcome back to Between a Hot Mess and a Therapist, your not so typical self-help podcast for high responsibility helpers who are tired of pretending they are fine. I'm your host, Shauna Lovin, a seasoned therapist, Texas LPC supervisor, 3-5 emotional projector, and a total tree-hugging auntie rebel who believes healing can be natural, of course, with compassion and a little cussing. If you're watching on YouTube, listening in your car, hiding in the bathroom at work, or staring at your ceiling at 2 a.m., baby, I already know what kind of week you're having. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's dive in. Just a quick note before we get into this today. I'm sharing a personal messy middle here, and I'm keeping the details vague on purpose. I'm not here to drag anyone through the mud. I'm just here to name the pattern that breaks a lot of helpers, especially the ones who look fine on the outside but are quietly cooked on the inside. So here's what happened. I'm sitting in the break room, with the fluorescent light that is doing that little flicker buzzy thingy, you know what I'm talking about? It's not really loud enough to have a complaint about it, but it's loud enough that your jaw is clenching before you even realize it. My hands are wrapped around something lukewarm and my phone is faced up on the table like a dare. Before I even open the message, my body already knows. The little drop in the stomach, the hot wave raising into the chest, the feeling like your body is trying to get in front of your mind to say, no, nope, not safe. And still, your thumb moves anyway, because some of us are trained to override ourselves before we were even taught to trust what that felt like. Now, here's the strange part that's happening. I can walk in with people's grief, trauma, rage, crisis, all of it. And I can sit in the fire with somebody else on their worst day of their life and stay grounded. But family just hits different. Because when the wound is old, your body doesn't read it like it's just a text. It reads the contract that's underneath it, the role, the assignment, the old job you never applied for, but somehow you kept getting casted for it anyway. The emotional manager, the peacekeeper, the translator, the fixer, the one who keeps everybody comfortable while you bleed quietly in the corner. And that's when it clicked with me. I wasn't just setting a boundary. I was breaking up with the mother wound. Not my mother as a person, just the wound. The part of me that learned that everything had to be easy. Love, in order to get love, it had to be easy. The part of you that still flinches when somebody is upset and immediately wonders what's wrong or what did I do wrong? The part of you that confuses closeness with some level of compliance. That's what is getting activated. Not the message itself. It was the whole emotional contract that's behind it. And once I could see that clearly, I could also see what my body had been trying to tell me all along. Because this is what happens when you deal with people who cannot or will not look at themselves and your nervous system starts to scan like it's on shift again. You read the tone, you pause the punctuations, you soften your words before you've even said them. You over explain, you add disclaimers, you say things from a place of love because somewhere along the way you learn that the truth is always allowed if it arrives wearing some kind of perfume. That is bracing. And then when you're alone, the other side of you shows up. The tired but wired nights that you start having, the mental rehearsing, the rereading, the scrolling, the holding your breath without knowing you're even doing it, the little fantasy of disappearing, moving away, changing your number, becoming a person with 3 plants and no access points. Like, you think about that person. That's not you being dramatic. That's really just your body creating some level of safety in an environment that keeps asking you to portray yourself. And for some of y'all, it doesn't even feel dramatic. It feels flat. It's productive. It's functional. Like you're handling your life just fine. But inside, everything has gone quiet. That eerie, like protective kind of way, though. And that's not peace either. That's survival with some good lighting. So eventually I sent a message. Not to be mean, not to be cruel, just clear. I named the behavior. I named the impact. I centered my kids. I refused to chase distractions or make the story smaller just so that everyone else could be comfortable. I made it plain that I was no longer available for the job managing everyone else's emotions. For about 30 seconds after I hit send, I felt tall, like my spine had remembered its original shape. And then my body crashed. Nausea, shaking, checking my phone too much, rereading what I wrote like I was grading myself. Not because I had changed my mind, but because my nervous system still associates relational tension with danger, silence with abandonment, somebody else being upset with my responsibility. That's the part nobody posts. That's the part where people who teach boundaries is pacing around the kitchen like a raccoon in a trap because she just told the truth. That's the shit you don't see. And when the response came back, it was the same old choreograph. Denial, deflection, spiritual language with no accountability. Love statements floating on top of unresolved harm. And a whole lot of energy spent protecting self-image and none spent actually tending to what my children actually experience. That's when the grief landed. Not loud grief, but a quiet one. The kind that sneaks up on you while holding a dish towel and suddenly you realize they're not coming for me. Not into accountability, not into repair, not into a different way of relating. They may love me in ways that they know how, but they may believe their version of the story, but they're not coming for me into truth. And that realization is brutal in its own clean way, because it means the work is no longer convincing and the work is choosing not to keep negotiating with people who want access without responsibility, choosing not to keep offering your children as collateral for an illusion of peace, choosing not to let silence do over explaining could never do. So let's me make this plain as I can. You can miss people and still not let them back into parts of you that refuse to treat it with care. You can love people and still choose distance. You can grieve the family you deserve without sacrificing your body, your children, to keep the story intact. That's where I want to bring in this reframe. Not as a performance, not as a spiritual glitter, just as a flashlight so that you can see. A boundary is not a punishment. It is an environmental decision. You're not cutting people off. You're choosing the conditions your nervous system needs in order to stay honest. You are choosing the condition your children need in order for them to stay safe. You are choosing spaces where truth does not have to audition for the acceptance. And if you're someone who naturally reads the room, senses what was unsaid, feels the pressure before a word is even spoken, or the course, of course, having the guilt texts that come, right? Or the emotional ultimatums that hit your system hard, they're not invitation. That is just pressure. And the pressure will make you abandon yourself faster if you're not careful. That's why energy integrity matters. Not in some kind of polished, pretty branding way. I mean a real congruency. Your words need to match your body. You are like not being without 10 paragraphs of explanation. You have that right. Letting people be disappointed without turning yourself into the cleanup crew. Because some of you have been living in your life like your job is to prevent other people from feeling their own fucking feelings. That is not care. That is survival strategy dressed up as some form of kindness. And I get it. I really do. Because I've been there. That skill probably kept you safe at once. But there comes a point where what kept you safe starts to cost you way more. Your kids don't need to know, or they don't need you to be nice. They need you to be real. They need to see what it looks like when the adult believes what happened, name it, refuse to decorate the harm just because the person is causing its familiarity. And yes, when you stop managing the emotions weather system that's in place with your family, the system will often accuse you of being the storm and being the problem. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means the pattern got interrupted. So if you are in this place right now, here's what I want to lay out for you. You don't need, or maybe you don't have to prove the harm. You don't have to do that. You don't have to win the case either. You don't have to get everybody to agree with your reality before you're allowed to protect your peace. And if you are sure as hell don't need a confession in order to believe your own body either. So if you never understand, you still get to choose peace. If they never call your silence out, you still get to be quiet. If they keep trying to redirect the story, you still get to trust what you saw. And here's what I'm going to say, the best way that I can. And I want you to know from my heart, you are not your family's emotional janitor. So I need you to put the mop down and step away. Maybe this hurts so much, not because you're doing the wrong thing, but because you're finally doing the thing you were never allowed to do. Maybe the grief is not proof that you're cruel, but maybe it's proof that very old role is actually dying. Maybe your nervous system has been begging for an environment where you don't have to shrink. your truth just to be loved. And if you don't know what to do next, don't start with the story. Start with your body, because your body never lies. When you imagine going back in to explain yourself again, does your body get soft or does it brace? That's the only question you need to answer. I want you to believe your body and what it's telling you. Until next time, go regulate and not ruminate. All right, my loves, that's another episode in the books, and I'm out. Now, I need you to go drink some water, touch some grass, get a sip of sunlight, take a pause, and stop acting like your nervous system is optional. And yes, you are basically a houseplant with complicated emotions. If you needed this today, tell me about it, tell me what landed, hit follow, and send this to the I'm fine friend who is absolutely not fine, and you know who I'm talking about. And if you want to work with me, everything you need is linked in the show notes, because Auntie doesn't do energy sucking DMs. Okay, love you. Bye.